Hello and good morning, my friends. Welcome to Painting in Your PJs, live with Minette. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan. I am a purpose, passion, and creativity coach who gets so excited about helping women, especially in midlife and beyond, reconnect to their innate purpose using art and writing as forms of creative expression that help us bypass our overthinking busy heads and reconnect with the truth of our souls. And on Painting in Your PJs, I spend a lot of time just sort of rambling, playing, talking about all different kinds of themes. And sometimes we go really deep and heady, and sometimes we get really playful. Well, it's finally, oh, Tori, good morning, my friend. So glad to see you too. Well, to kind of sort of see you too, but glad to be here with you. And it's really finally, hopefully, spring here in Loveland, Colorado, where I live. It's a gorgeous sunny morning. I woke up feeling good. I was a little nervous yesterday that I was coming down with a bit of a cold, but I feel great today, and I'm super excited because I leave Saturday morning to head to Massachusetts to teach at a really fun art retreat. And all kinds of fun things are going on. But mostly, I think what I'm excited about and what's in my heart that wants to be expressed today is a celebration of that it's really finally spring. Now, it's not spring up in the mountains where my mom lives. There's tons of snow still in the mountains, which makes them really beautiful. But down here, everything is blooming. And so it felt important to really honor and celebrate that in the moment. And I share that with you because as you're working and creating intuitively, as you're leaning in to Blanca, hola mi amiga, long time no see, and as you're in that space of finding your creative style or using creativity to connect more deeply with yourself, learning to trust your intuition is such a powerful part of the journey, and it is the path to finding your style. And today, I'm going to share parts of what have helped me sort of find my style over time. And I'm going to share some I'm going to actually use things I've only created on this channel, I think, and share some ideas about, how do we listen and honor and celebrate and bring that forth onto the page or the tag. I'm working on tags yet today again, and how do we just trust that inner voice that knows what color, what mark to put down? And the secret to trusting our intuition is letting go of expectations and letting go of outcomes and really being in the enjoyment of the process. All right, let me switch my camera over here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mixed media tag that's kind of celebrating spring. And I've already put the base layer on the tag so that it had time to dry. So this is a master sheet that I started. I don't even really think it's finished on one of the episodes a couple of weeks ago about making your own handmade collage materials, and I love this. So what I did was took it to my printer and made a color photocopy. And when you create things like this and you don't have a printer at home, FedEx and Staples are great places. It's very inexpensive to go and create color copies of things. And why color copies? Well, one, I can use this over and over again, but also this was created on some scrap cardstock, and the cardstock's really thick, and I wanted something thinner for this underlayer of my collage. It would be really fun to try printing this on some vellum or some tracing paper as well. Hi, Judy. Good morning. Good morning. And so I printed this out and I have glued down, I just put a piece of that as my under collage here. It's also really a fast way to do an under collage and a fast way to, not a fast way, but a great way to get that base layer really smooth. Good morning, Yvonne. And one of the things about working with collage that I've noticed about myself is that I like a smooth undersurface. I don't like when I'm art journaling in particular because I love drawing over the tops of things. I don't want lots of lines and texture in my underpaintings. I want things to be a little bit more on the thin side. So working this way allowed me to take this kind of, chunky, although this one is pretty smooth, but this more thicker layers and sort of reduce it into this one image. And so that worked really well for me. Now I want to start next with a layer of paint. And again, as I always do, I'm working very intuitively this morning. I do have an idea of where I'm going, but I'm holding that idea. This is part of the trusting and how to discover your own style, is I'm trusting that the outcome is going to be great, even if it doesn't look like what's in my head. So I have an idea of where I'm going and what I want it to look like, but I'm not attached to that vision in my head. I see so many artists get so frustrated by not being able to perfectly translate what's in their head to the page or the canvas. And I think that part of the journey of finding our style is learning to make it look like our own, number one. And we do that by not having it look like anyone else's, by trusting our intuition, and by being willing to play. So I'm just going to start putting a little bit of paint down. I want to keep the paint kind of transparent here because I don't want to completely lose all of that yummy collaged background on there. So I'm just going to work with a couple of colors here. My favorite, this is a bright aqua green from Liquitex and a primary yellow from Liquitex. And I may even water these down quite a bit. And I'm going to probably take either a scraper or a a baby wipe and push some of this back even more. So these two colors make the most beautiful green. Look at that. How fun is that? And so I want to just get some color down on the page. I do want some of that yellow, so I'm going to rinse my brush here. And get some of that bright yellow on there. So some of you may have seen on Instagram or on Facebook, I finished a new mandala painting that I was really, really happy with how it turned out. And I'm loving painting on round canvases. This is a new adventure for me. I'm definitely going to have to order some more round canvases to play with. And I'm feeling super inspired to create an in-person mandala painting workshop. I don't know when I'm going to be able to do that, but I can feel it started coming into my consciousness. But I posted this, and like within seconds of posting it, I get a text from my daughter saying, "Can I have that one? Can it go in my bedroom?" And so I think when we go to Oregon for her graduation in a few weeks, that the mandala painting will be going with me. And I had such an interesting reaction. Of course she can have the painting. And yes, I could just hang it upstairs in her, thank you, Yvonne. I could just hang it upstairs in her bedroom for when she's here. But I found myself being attached to the painting, not wanting to let it go. And I get that way about some of my paintings, and yet I also trust, it's part of that process of learning to trust, that it's going to end up wherever it needs to be. Hi, George. Oh, Diego. Hello, buddy. You going to come up? Yes, I know. He's got to come in for his morning snuggles. And so it's another example of noticing when we get over attached to our own work, to our own outcomes, And for me, art is meant to be shared, whether it's shared on the walls of my own home or I'm blessed enough that someone else loves it and wants it to grace the walls of their home. But it requires us, again, being so in love with the process that we're not attached to outcomes of what happens. I'm also completely detached these days, and boy, this was definitely a learning curve for me. I'm detached from whether they sell or not. Some I paint and they're mine. They are not for sale at all. And and that's very clear to me, that especially the ones that are very personal, that involve a story or an experience, or that were that sort of emotional expression of a moment in time. And I know those aren't for sale. And some are, right? And some are. And I'm also detached from whether they sell or not. And guess what, you guys? Canvases are expensive. So part of my journey has been, if I don't love it and no one else loves it enough to buy it, I just paint over it. One of the paintings that is featured on my website at MinetteRiordan.com is this gorgeous bouquet of flowers. I loved painting it, and it was pretty good. And I painted over it. In fact, I think Leslie Eibler has the painting. She bought the painting that went on top of that one. And people always now ask me about that painting. And it's hilarious because I'm like, yeah, I painted over it. I had done a big raven painting that my son loved. And when he went off to college, I painted over that one too. He was not very happy with me, but the painting that it ended up being the final painting on that canvas is one of my all-time favorite paintings. So much of the creative journey from my perspective is about letting go, about not holding tightly. All right, I need to get this good and dry, and then I want to do some botanical illustration in my favorite style with just lots of black on top of these bright colors. So I'm loving these sheer bright spring colors. My husband and I were running some errands yesterday, and we went down one street in downtown where there were a row of blooming trees that were the new leaves, because remember, it's just spring here. It already might be feeling like summer wherever you are, but it's just now spring here. But the new leaves on these trees were these brilliant yellow gold, and they almost took my breath away because it was like they were just glowing. And so part of my own creative and intuitive process, and what I'm super excited to be teaching at this retreat next week, is this idea of noticing when you start to look for your style, noticing what inspires you, noticing what pulls you in, what colors are you drawn to, what colors do you see yourself using over and over again, are some of those clues and secrets to your next directions. All right, so I don't remember when, it's been a while, but on one of the episodes, we created some super cute, fun stamps and out of fun foam, and I had a idea to pull those out this morning. I went through them. This one has a leafy bit, and I actually played with could I just use a black marker on these? And what I've discovered is you can use just about anything, watercolor, markers, or acrylic paint on these foamy stamps to create some interesting stamps. And I actually really loved the transparency. So I think this little birdie is going to end up on here at some point. I realize I left my list of words, and a poem I've been thinking about over on my desk. So I might go grab those in a minute. But I think first what I want to do And I'm going to go grab my grasses as well. So hang on just a second. All right. I had Connor create a fun list of words. I love using words and add some different fonts to them. And for me, nature is all about wonder. Definitely. Oh, you guys, I'm talking away over here and you can't hear me because I moved my microphone. So for me, spring is all about wonder. It's about harmony. It's about making time and space for doing some deep reflection about my own renewal. So I'm thinking about all of these things, and some of these words might inspire a phrase or they might simply end up on the page. And I just noticed I have adventure on here twice and renewal. Okay, dude. All right, I have to fix that up a little bit. It's probably my fault on the list. And what I wanted was so we also have done this here on the channel, all these gorgeous botanical illustrations of different kinds. Lots of them are simply black and white. And so this is what I was looking for, was thinking about adding some lines and grasses. Looking for some drawing inspiration, and what I love are these great big lines drawn here. All right, so that helped a little bit. So I think I'm going to start with this. So this is I have a whole bunch of black pens here, because one of the things I found when doing this type of illustration is that having a variety of different nib types adds visual interest to the page. I wouldn't have discovered that unless I was willing to play, to trust the process, to spend some time playing with my pens and seeing all the different marks that they make. So let me grab and see. Oh, look, here's a nice scrappy bit of paper here. So for example, if you're wondering, if you have all these supplies at home, playing with your supplies is an important part of discovering what you love. So I spend time with pens and brushes learning what they can do. Like, how many different things can I actually create? No two of those lines look alike, all from one pen, but I wouldn't know that. And if I just dive right into drawing, I might get really frustrated. This is a click, a retractable fine point Sharpie, which is kind of interesting. It's a pretty fat nib. It says it's fine point, but from my perspective, that's not very fine point, right? And the blacks are very similar, which is always nice. Not all blacks are the same. These were a great set of pens, these needle drawing pens. They're by Superior. They are very much like microns, but much more affordable than the microns. And that's worn off the top. Oh, it says this is an 05. There I'm starting to get that much finer line. And I had to learn, as part of my own creative process, to love this type of play. When I started painting, and I was painting before I really understood what art journaling was, and I wanted to just go in and paint. I didn't have a lot of time. I just wanted to paint. I wanted to finish something. And I would get frustrated and I would be stuck in the messy middle for too long. And I would think, oh, it's boring to practice. It's not exciting. I don't want to do this. Can't I just start painting? And what I discovered was that the more that I gave myself permission to play, the better I felt. I love this pen, and I wouldn't have known I loved this pen if I wasn't willing to play with it. So this is a Fudanasuki by Sakura, and it has this very flexible plastic tip. So you can vary lines and get those more calligraphic line work in there by playing with the nib of the pen. Diego, you already came and said hello, buddy. All right, up or not? Yes, you're being very distracting. Come on, up or down? Yes, I hear you. All right. This is a Tombow. Oh no, this is not the Tombow, but it's like the Tombow. This is a King Art twin tip brush pen. I've been pretty happy with these, but these are slightly water soluble, I think. I don't think these are, yeah, those aren't permanent. So I want to be mindful if I'm using these, I can't brush them with water because they're going to bleed. But they also make really beautiful lines. Hi, buddy. And the black is not as opaque. Interesting, right? So just playing, experimenting. This is a Tombow twin tone. These are also slightly water soluble, and it's double tipped, very fine. See, I feel myself, I'm like, okay, I'm done playing. Can we just get back to creating now? These are also, if I remember correctly, slightly water soluble, right? We need to know this about our pens that we're working with, right? So these are going to spread if I decide I wanted to add more paint over the top. That would be tricky. Even matte medium would make those markers spread. So I don't want those. That's another Fudanasuki. This is just a Sharpie gel pen that has become one of my favorite writing pens and drawing pens. It goes over the top of the acrylic nicely. It is such fun discoveries. I agree. This is one of my absolute favorite pens, along with that Permapaque is an Identa pen, mostly because it writes on absolutely anything, and it has a beautiful black, a beautiful flow. I love the nib sizes on both ends. Kind of like a Micron 05, about that size, but super permanent, right? Super permanent. So there's just, scrap paper is great for this stuff, to just play with your pens to see what they'll do so that you're not caught by surprise when you put it on something that you love, something that you work on. Like, I am already feeling a little attached to this pretty tag right here, and I'm not sure that I want to let it go, right? That's a great question, Judy. So many choices for so many different uses. How to remember which works for you. So one of the things that I do, and I had a sample in this journal, swatch them out in a journal. So here was a practice page that I created with pencils, with different pens. This is the Higgins Black Magic, which I don't have one right now, but I love, right? A kind of drying out posca. But I just created, you could do this on little scraps of paper or little squares of mixed media paper and put them on a binder clip and keep them. So creating tools for yourself that are useful so that you can remember across time. So that's what I would recommend doing, right? Is that we actually create samples. And I taught that into the garden class, gosh, 3 or 4 summers ago now, but I come back to this journal over and over again because it has so many of these sample things in it. Here's one where we played with acrylic paint with Posca markers and gel pen over the top of the paint. So being willing to create something like this, right? So these are all fun ways to experiment, but experiment on things that you don't care about. So when you come to these things that you do care about, right, you know what to expect, what's going to happen. And it's also important to know how your ink is going to flow. Thanks, Judy. This is the inspiration for what I'm teaching at Books in the Woods next week. So I'm super excited. I haven't taught it in a while. And and I have to practice. So today what I'm doing is practicing for teaching next week. Shh, don't tell anybody because it's been a while. So I'm feeling, because I'm left-handed, I'm going to start on the right side over here. And I'm just going to have some fun with some line work. I'm going to keep it loose and flowy here for a minute. One of my favorite zentangle patterns, they're called zingers, and these super cute little blooms. And I'm thinking about my little birdie, and maybe my little birdie is going to sit right up here on this stem. I'm going to do a little planning here. So if he's sitting on this stem, then I'm going to have most of my drawing be down here at the bottom. All right, so this is why I keep, oh, here's another one with, another one we did with practicing folk art marks, but doing it all with different nibs of pens. But I want some inspiration because we forget, right? Like it's like zentangle patterns. I use the same ones over and over until I remember to go look at a resource and try some different things. All right, so I'm going to bring in now something slightly thinner here, and I may even add, let's get some movement going up here. Those stems I think are still a little bit maybe thicker than what I want, so let's try this one. Playing with the nibs of your different pens over the top of acrylics is also important because acrylic is genius at eating pens. So being really mindful of what you're using and playing a little bit like with some mostly dead pens, right? But just being careful with what you use. Like I never use micron pens over the top of acrylics, especially not an 01. I might use something like a 05, but I killed so many microns trying to tangle over the top of acrylic paint. Most of these seeds and grasses were inspired by a fun walk up at my mom's house one summer. We were visiting and I went for a walk in their neighborhood and just gathered different grasses and seeds to use as inspiration for these illustrations. So I encourage you to think about that, and might be fall before you get a chance to gather dried grasses and seeds, or you might still, like me, find some still that are remaining from winter. But go collect dried things or even fresh things growing in your neighborhood and be inspired by what's in nature right around you. And some plants have stems with seeds. This one is this crazy one where the seeds grow right up along really close to the stem. Some of them are a little more feathery and dramatic. I love dried wheat is quite beautiful, makes a gorgeous illustration. And I'm not trying to make this super realistic. I'm not trying to make it look like anything. I'm just having fun celebrating the colors of spring. All the birds are singing. Last night we had two beautiful spotted towhees at our bird feeder, and a couple of mallards have found our bird feeder as well. So we've had birdie adventures, and the cats are fascinated by the ducks. And it's been fun to watch them. I'm glad the cats are inside, not outside with the ducks. We have a sweet little robin nesting. I really like the heaviness of this one. We have a sweet robin nesting in our maple tree out front. So as I look at this and start to think about balance and contrast and where am I going, notice how heavy this is. Like my eye is instantly drawn to this corner over here, and that's not necessarily what I want. So I'm going to add another one of these heavy dudes. Up here, so it splits my eye a little bit. Interesting, created a little bit of a grid pattern there. And then maybe one more little one down here, balancing out those darks and those more delicate lines a little bit. And I'm looking at this and it's almost framing space for some words on there, which is kind of interesting. So let me go ahead and get this birdie down and we'll see where we're going to go from here. I think the bird is going to be black too. I'm going to keep it in that silhouette. So I'm just going to take this permapaque. You could do this with a Sharpie. You could do it with a Tombow or any other, just even a Crayola marker. But remember that those are not permanent. They are water soluble. And I want him, this birdie, to be a little bit transparent. Hi, Carol. So I'm going to stamp it once lightly to get just a little bit of that ink off. And I think, so he's facing that way. I really want him facing the other way. So we're going to stick him down here right over the top of everything and just see what happens. All right, close enough. And I'm going to go ahead and ink him in. I wasn't sure if I wanted him to be transparent because of where he ended up. I'm going to give him some legs so he doesn't look so funny. Maybe lengthen that beak a little bit. And I want him to be in front of those branches, so we're just gonna, might take a couple of layers or maybe even some black acrylic paint. I'm noticing that over the top of the matte medium, so this, or over the top of the acrylic, no, it's going on there pretty well. Yeah, just took a little bit of effort to get on there. Sweet little birdie. Hi, Lisa. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Loving where this is going. My tendency when I do this kind of botanical illustration is to overdo it and put way too many things in there. So now I'm looking at it going, do I want to add maybe a few more marks or something else in the background? Do I want to keep it really simple? And now I have this space up here, so maybe my words are going to go up here and I can fill in this space with a few more plants. Maybe we'll get some little more floral botanical illustrations going in here. This pen's pretty fat. Again, not staying attached to any of it. Now I'm looking at it thinking, oh, it might be fun to come in with a little white over the top of it. definitely can get some more of this nice fescue in here as filler. Fescue is another one of my favorite very simple botanical zentangle patterns. And one of my dear friends who is a wonderful zentangle teacher, Mary Rose Feldman, is called by her students the Queen of Fescue because she does amazing, really beautiful things with fescue. I'm noticing I only have one of these big zingers in here, so I'm feeling like I want another one of those to kind of come and balance out the top up here, or maybe even two more, one kind of going up this way, maybe, thinking. I think I need to decide what words are going to go on here first, and then I will be able to make a decision. So I'm going to imagine that this one is just kind of coming up out of the center here. Remember how we think about things in threes, right? So that we have more balance in the image. So I only have two of these, right? I have some kind of random numbers of things. So I think what I want is one more of those fun little zingers up here. All right, feels more balanced, feels more complete. And I'm wondering if my white gel pen would work over the top of my bird so I could give my bird a little bit of something, something, some zentangle patterns on that bird, but definitely feeling like this one's going to be kind of wordy. So let me go back to this list of words that I'm playing with. So the first word that popped out was transformation, like without really thinking about it or looking about it. And what an appropriate word that is for this time of year. So is growth, so is hope. Oh, and as soon as I said hope, the first thing that I thought of were the words to Emily Dickinson's poem, "Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul." So now I'm thinking, and see how just that one word inspired that thought. Okay, so it's going to need those words. I'm going to add those later with my typewriter. And thank you, Lisa. And so I'm going to add those later. It also needs some fun ribbons, right? And a little more tchotchke. So I might ask you to bear with me for a minute and I will go find some of those goodies over on my other shelves. But actually, look at this beautiful hand painted piece of fabric. I think this was dyed with either watercolor or acrylic inks. I love it. So that kind of matches on there too. Oh, thank you so much. Your mom saved a nightingale several years ago, and now somehow our front yard became a habitat for the next generation of birds, and each spring they serenade us. Oh, I love them. Perch themselves on the chimney. I can imagine that. What a beautiful story, and what a treat to have nightingales. I've had all kinds of visitors lately, and we saw our first oriole, which looked like these like giant lemon bombs. All right, let's see. Oh, doesn't always love tearing into little small pieces. So again, I love all the fun dangly bits that make it feel finished, and the only other thing it needs to feel finished is going to be those words. And I love my own handwriting. Do I want to put my own handwriting on there? Decisions, decisions. This is that tricky part, and this is where we can get stuck in judgment. The first thought in my head was, oh my gosh, I'll mess it up if I'm doing the handwriting. If I'm typing right, I can make it a little bit neater. All right. And there we have a super, super simple tag honoring and celebrating spring and fruits to come. That sense of transformation, growth, blossoms are all in the air. And I can take a feathers. You are so right, Blanca. Did you see me grabbing my pencils there? And I'm going to play because if I don't like it, I can paint over it, right? I can start again. And I'm going to make sure I have the words right. So I'm going to look that up on my phone here. I think I have it right. Hope is a thing. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. I love this poem. Lisa, here's a poem for you. You may know this one. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. By Emily Dickinson. I love that. Love it. Beautiful. Okay, so let's see. My concern is, can I fit it here? So hope. I don't want it to be squished. I have to let go of the stanzas and how the stanzas are organized. Hope is the thing with feathers. I know you guys can't see that writing. You can kind of see it. That perches in the soul. So it needs to move up a little bit if I want to, or I can put Emily. Nope. I want to get her name in there and make sure that that fits. So the whole thing needs to move up a line. And I'm present to needing to write it with a pretty fine tip pen to make sure. Or do I write it over the tops and backs of things? Sometimes what I love to do is to write along the curve of a line like this. So maybe I'm going to try that. Okay, I have a pen in my hand. I'm just going to go for it. We're going to see what happens. And notice that feeling when you say, oh, I'm just going to go for it. Notice that feeling in your chest. I can feel myself tightening up a little bit. And I think I'm going to have it go on the inside. So hope. Is the thing with feathers. That perches in the soul. And then we're going to put Emily Dickinson down here. Okay, I love that. And I'm going to leave that space open up there as a rest space. And I'm going to add some more paint over the top of that because now it has gotten, you can still see the pencil on there, which is okay, but not what I'm going for. All right, I love that. I'm going to sign this. Because I always forget to sign my work. All right, so let's get a little bit of this blue in my fingers. Really, it's just an excuse to do maybe a little finger painting. And I can still see where so the thing about the pencil is that it left grooves in the paper and the paint, which is fine, right? And so I can still see some of that handwriting, but you can't really read it. But if you look closely, you can see there's some marks in there. All right, maybe a little touch of white to brighten that up again. And then I'm going to call it done for now. Remember, this is the other part about learning to find your style and appreciate your own art, is noticing when things are done for now. And people often ask me, how do I know when things are complete? It takes a while. And again, it is an intuitive sense. It is trusting yourself to know. I just repainted the background of the, by Blanca, I just painted the background of a hummingbird painting that I probably repainted multiple times, and it kept bugging me and I didn't know what was right, and it sat on my shelf for a long time, and I finally figured it out yesterday after painting it. I might have even painted that one when I was in Goleta and it traveled here with me. All right, Judy, when that tight or scary feeling happens, I deep breaths or stand up and stress. Yes, stretch. Yeah, beautiful. I love that, Judy. Yes, absolutely. That moment of pause. And I'm wondering if I could brighten these up a little bit so they match the tag a little bit better. So don't be afraid to add paint to all the things that you're playing with. They just feel a little bit dull. All right, we'll let that dry and see what I think about them, but I feel like that's going to liven them up a little bit. And we're going to call that complete. So just a few reminders as you are seeking your own style. A couple of things. So don't forget to play. Don't forget to experiment. Don't get attached to outcomes, but fall in love with the process. Listen to those feelings. Listen to those little nudges that say, oh, I want to paint a blah, blah, blah. And if you can't paint in the moment, write it down so you capture it. Do what Judy said when you're caught in that messy middle or you feel that little bit of tightening or scary feeling. Breathe, stand up, stretch, and sometimes more importantly, walk away. Walk away. We can get attached to the amount of time that we have because it often can feel very limited. So I really want to encourage you to walk away from a piece. And if you don't want to stop creating, go work on something else. When things tend to get overly messy and mixed up is when we are too focused in the moment. So learning to slow our progress down, learning to listen to nudges, learning to explore and play to find what it is that we love. Thanks, my friends. No live calls next week. Haha, I love it. Thank you, Judy. No live calls next week. I will be in Massachusetts with Judy. So excited. Can't wait to hug you in person if you're a hugger. And I'll see you guys all in a couple of weeks. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of this week and lovely next week. Get outside, practice feeling that sense of awe and wonder at all the life that is teeming around you right now. Bye, everybody.